I wanted to do a video today that talked about the pros and cons of living in Sarasota. A lot of you are thinking about moving to Sarasota. Maybe you've visited already. I'm somebody that's actually lived here for the last, it's been almost 12 years, and I absolutely love it. But there's some things that, aren't perfect about living in Sarasota, just like any other place. And so I wanted to be as transparent as possible with this video to ensure that you've kind of thought through everything before you make the decision to actually move here. If you're new to my channel, my name is Katrina Fitzo and I'm a real estate agent in Sarasota, Bradenton, Venice, and Lakewood Ranch. I did a video like this about 9 months ago, but quite a bit has changed here in Sarasota when it comes to events, and that kind of changes up my list a little bit, okay? So let's talk about the pros first. Well, I absolutely love the fact that it's warm year-round. I got really tired of the New York weather in the winter time, just being cooped inside and freezing and having your muscles all tense up. Well, here you're gonna be dealing with year-round warm weather. I absolutely love the winters especially. It's just perfect. It doesn't rain that much. And typically it's around 75 degrees. We do get, some cold weeks where maybe it'll go down to 45 degrees, but you'll never see snow here. We have some of the most beautiful beaches, Siesta Key Beach being one of them, which is also notably our most popular beach in Sarasota. But we have a lot of other beaches to choose from. Actually, there's about 9 beaches within the Sarasota area, Sarasota County area, that are just absolutely stunning. Just think Venice, you got Casperson Beach there, which is known as the shark tooth capital in the world, Venice Beach, Nokomis Beach, Brohart Beach, which is the only beach where you can allow your dog to run around freely. And that's not even counting Lido Key, which is actually, North Lido Key is actually one of my favorites because I absolutely love walking there at nighttime. Anna Maria Island, which is not too far away, and people come from all over the world to visit Anna Maria Island beaches as well. So we're pretty blessed in terms of having the most beautiful beaches in Florida, or some of the most beautiful beaches in Florida right in our backyards. Now, Sarasota, surprisingly to many of you, is not that big of a place. I guess it depends on where you come from. If you come from a big city like Chicago, San Francisco, New York, you're gonna be surprised as to how small it is. But I actually think that's one of the value propositions in terms of being able to commute to all these different destinations that we have here in Sarasota that make Sarasota such an amazing place to live in, such as the beaches. Downtown Sarasota, Mayaka State Park is just 20 minutes over to the east side. There's just lots to do in Sarasota, and it's not going to take you that long to travel to. Now, some people are probably going to argue with me and they're going to say, Katrina, but the traffic has gotten so much worse. Yes, we'll actually talk about that later. It's gotten worse, but you know what? What hasn't? What place hasn't gotten worse when it comes to the traffic? So being from New York City, when I wanted to go to the beach, for example, it would take me a long time to get to a beach, or even to get outside of the city just to change landscapes. So much easier here to go from one landscape to another, to go from a beach to a downtown setting, to maybe a beautiful park setting, to a state park. Sarasota is transforming. A lot of people are wanting to live here and have moved here, especially over the last 2 years, which has really been prompted by COVID and people having had more time to research places, to visit places, and they've come to the conclusion that, hey, Sarasota is a great place for me to raise a family or for me to retire in. The city is also expanding, and just to see these projects evolving is fascinating to me. So one of them that I'm absolutely in love with is called the Bay Sarasota. And it's this initiative downtown Sarasota where they're looking to transform the Bay Area into the heart and soul of downtown Sarasota. I think of it as the central park of Sarasota. Once it's completely said and done, it will be the place to go to. Just like in St. Petersburg, downtown St. Petersburg, the St. Pete Pier, which was just opened a few years ago, is now, in my opinion, the central part of downtown St. Pete, and the Bay Sarasota is going to do the same for Sarasota. And we've seen a lot of additions already over the last few years. They've added a pathway for people to walk and bike in. There's a little beach section. And just recently they opened up a huge lawn where they'll play outside movies or they'll have concerts. And it's already starting to become actually the heart of downtown Sarasota. So it's these types of projects that are just amazing to witness. There's Wellen Park, which is a master plan community on the southern side of Venice. Granted, it's not in Sarasota, but it's easy for us to travel to. In my case, I live in South Sarasota. It's just 25 minutes away. And they're just in the process of opening up a downtown area with entertainment, restaurants. There's going to be a rooftop bar. And then there's Lakewood Ranch, which falls within Sarasota and Bradenton. In the Lakewood Ranch downtown area, the new downtown area, Waterside Place, opened over a year ago. And that's exciting to see. It's a place that I go to every now and then as well. So by no means is Sarasota stagnant. There's just so much change coming and will continue to come. And it's change that's going to make our lives happier and better and more fulfilling. And so that's what's really exciting. And then of course there's the no state income tax, which is kind of nice, being able to keep more of your money. And that's one of the reasons actually why a lot of people from New York, for example, are moving down to Florida, because they'll be able to keep a lot more of their money in their pockets. What about the cons? And there are quite a few cons. First one being red tide. The reason why I'm bringing up red tide is because we're just dealing with it right now here in Sarasota. We've had a pretty bad bloom, and it's been lasting for, I would say, a few months now. And it's actually the second bloom since Hurricane Ian brushed over. Now, somebody asked me, how often do you get a bloom? And it's hard to say. You know, there's been years where we didn't really have bad blooms. And then over the last few years, it seems like we're getting a bad bloom every year, sometimes more than once a year. I would say red tide is definitely something that you have to make peace with. There is proof, scientific proof, that red tide is being made worse with pollution, but it is a natural occurring event as well. And even if we help the situation with pollution, if we lessen pollution, we're still going to have red tide. It actually dates back to the 15th century, I believe, or 16th century. You know, there's a lot of evidence that it's been around for hundreds of years, and so most scientists will say it'll never truly go away. If we can lessen pollution, which we should keep the environment as clean as possible, then I do believe that some of the blooms aren't going to be as intensive as they might have been over the last few years. But of course, I'm not a scientist, and so what you should do is follow somebody that's credible in this field, such as Moat. They do a lot of scientific research as it relates to red tide, and see what they have to say. Homeowners insurance, that's a real pain point for all of us living here in Florida. It's been increasing so much over the last few years. I myself am paying about $5,000 now, where just 2 years ago I was paying $2,500. The premiums are high for a couple of reasons. There's been a lot of insurance fraud going on, which is making it all more expensive for us. Insurance fraud as it relates to mainly to roof fraud. Also, you know, a lot of insurance companies have been wiped out or have left Florida, so there's less competition, less insurance companies that are willing to insure homes. Yeah, the hurricanes aren't making that any better, right? So every time there's a natural disaster that causes a lot of damage, we all pay into it, and it's increasing the home insurance premiums for us. Now, I will say this, that if you buy a brand new house, new construction, home insurance costs are going to be much less. I know of a few people who've just recently gotten home insurance on their new construction homes, and they're paying so much less than me. Now, home insurance costs are going to be driven by a few factors. They're going to be driven by, you know, the age of your house, the quality of your house, what flood zone you're in, how close you're in a coastline. The best thing to do is, if you wanted to know what the home insurance costs are going to be on a potential home that you're interested in purchasing, is to contact a home insurance agent. Summer weather, that's a pain point for some of you. I actually like the summer. I love the humidity. I don't mind the rain, but I know by talking to a lot of people who've left Florida or are thinking about leaving Florida, the weather is hard for them to deal with because it does get super humid. It's not necessarily the heat. If you actually look at the heat index, doesn't really go too much higher than 90 degrees, but it's the humidity, it's the constant rain. We have a lot of rain that we're getting in the summertime. It typically rains almost every day. It doesn't last very long, but with that comes lightning storms. And so if you're somebody who likes to ride a bike like me, you have to really plan your day ahead. And I typically don't even like to ride it that far away from my house. I like to be really close because thunderstorms can creep in so fast. Of course, hurricanes, that can be scary. And we've had a few bad ones over the last few years. Ian having been the last one. Prior to that, it was Hurricane Irma. And luckily for Sarasota, we've never been in the eye of a hurricane, but I wouldn't really go with that statistic. You just never know. I mean, Sarasota could one day get hit really hard. Knock on wood, it's never happened though, and hopefully it never will. But the fact is, you know, if you lived in Fort Myers Beach, for example, your home probably was wiped out. Now, living in Florida, that could be scary, or thinking about moving to Florida, that could be scary. How do I deal with hurricanes? There's ways you can mitigate the risk. First of all, they're asking you to evacuate. Don't stay in your house. Most of the deaths are due to drowning, flooding, the tides that come in. So there's a couple of ways you can be safer, and that is maybe living further away from the coast. Or if you really wanted to be by the coast, then a lot of you are still going to be by the coast because it's nice to have that water view. It's nice to be really close to the beach. Is to make sure you have homeowners insurance and flood insurance. Make sure you safeguard your home. Make sure you safeguard your investment. Be in a preferred flood zone called Flood Zone X, which is still a flood zone, but it's a preferred one to live in. Less chances of there being flooding. So pretty much anywhere in Florida, there's a chance of flooding. But when it comes to probability, there's some places that are just going to be safer to live in. Because of Florida's popularity, the traffic has gotten a lot worse, and that includes here in Sarasota. Now, I will say though, that for me, the traffic is not that bad, okay? Because I've come from one of the worst case scenarios, and that is New York City traffic. So I always say in my videos that traffic is going to be dependent upon your own perception. You're going to want to check it out here. If traffic is of concern to you, come here and see what it's like during different hours of the day, different times of the year, and so forth. And yeah, so that's my recommendation, is to just learn the traffic here and figure out how you can lessen your chances of getting stuck in traffic. And then lastly, our critters, bugs, palmetto bugs, which is Florida's roach. That is probably the worst one for me. I absolutely can't stand the palmetto bug, and they keep coming out, especially in the summertime. And no, it has nothing to do with how tidy your house is. They just creep in through cracks, and you know, I actually don't know. I'm pretty clean. I have an exterminator that comes in every 3 months, but every now and then I do have issues, and they usually are in the summertime. Gators. A lot of you are scared of gators. Well, if you're scared of a gator, just don't live close to a lake. If you don't live close to a lake, you won't have to worry about it, because you know, it's not like they walk miles and miles away from a lake. They don't. I live really close to a lake. I see them every day. It doesn't bother me. I've learned how to deal with them, and I actually, you know, I kind of like seeing them floating in the lake or even lounging on the grass. And I know not to get close. As long as I don't get close to them, they don't feel threatened, they're not going to attack me, most likely. You know, there's other critters that might be a nuisance. Mosquitoes especially, those tend to breed in still standing water. It rains a lot in the summertime, so I have bug spray with me at home. I have a lanai, which is covered, it's caged, and that seems to help with the mosquitoes, with gators, of course, and all sorts of other critters. And in most cases, people are just going to get used to it. And there's some wildlife that is just absolutely amazing to see, such as dolphins and manatees in the water. There's not a lot of places in the world you'll be able to get that close to these mammals. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions in regards to moving to Sarasota, what it's like living in Sarasota, real estate, call me, email me anytime. I truly love hearing from all you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching until the very end. I always appreciate it when you guys do. Take care.